Dogs run fast.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Dynasty Dogs podcast, brought to you by the Double FU for You. That is the fantasy football universe. This is also my dog's favorite podcast. Forgot to mention that. It's the first time I've messed up the intro in some time. But anyways, today we have a Devy Planet takeover. Our good friend SC Romero here decided to, come and try to take over our land, the Dynasty Dog house. SC, how you doing today?
Good, brother. Good. Just living the dream here. Ready for the holidays, as you know. Got my Cat Dad holiday sweater on. Got my Merry Christmas Christmas mug on over here. So as I take a sip,
let me see that mug again. That's pretty cool. I've never seen that before. That's interesting.
Merry Christmas, man. We're the dark side over here, but enjoying it. Devy seasons, college football season's handed a bowl game. So, we're me and my guy Spencer are taking the time out from the shows here to do our breakdowns and get our film analytics and all our analytics done for the college guys coming in, and as well as the incoming, freshmen coming in as well. Avengers Doomsday trailer should drop soon. Street Fighter trailer drops soon.
The Boys trailer.
Diablo got an update, Diablo 4 there. I play that with my wife a lot, and it's a holiday season, man. It's very fun. So
you forgot something super important there. What's today? Saturday morning. What's today?
Saturday morning.
What do we got going on tonight?
Navy and Army?
No.
Oh, what main event? Cena's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Saturday Night Live main event happening.
No, you've completely forgotten about wrestling, haven't you?
Well, I'm with ESPN taking it's no longer on Peacock. I'm not watching these pay-per-views as much, so that's a little hurtful there. When it was on Peacock, I was watching it every time, but now that's on ESPN. I gotta try to find it and look for it because I don't have ESPN. So there's that.
To be honest, we're going off a little tangent here, but I have been super miserable since they got rid of the WWE network itself. Like when it was its own personal thing, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I really thought it was well put together. Like you could find things super easy. You could watch any pay-per-view you wanted. You could do that with Peacock too, but I just felt like it was more, fan accessible or fan maneuverable. I don't know how to say that. I'm not, but I just felt it was more streamlined. It was just better prepared than what they've done since they got rid of the app. But you mentioned a lot of, there were awards given out last night, if I'm not mistaken, for college football, right?
Yep.
Were there any surprises to you, or were you kind of was that how you thought it was going to play out?
No, before I say that, let me just, do a quick Google collections here, college football, make sure. But no, off the top, I can't think of any that were big surprises. That really happened. Let me double check here.
I don't think there was either. That's why I thought it was just,
Fernando, outstanding player, got it, makes sense. Walter Camp Player of the Year award, Fernando Mendoza, makes sense. Coach of the Year, Indiana, makes sense. Doak Walker, running back, Jeremiah Love, makes sense.
That was easy.
Yeah. Quarterback, Cam or Fernando, makes sense. Outstanding senior quarterback, Diego Pavia. Now, Pavia's in the race for the Heisman. I say Pavia's to win. I know a lot of people are on Indiana. He had a great season, with Indiana. The defense is getting overlooked, I feel like, because of Fernando Mendoza. The defense in Indiana is really good this year. They held out a lot of teams to minimum points to allow Fernando Mendoza to, go out there and succeed. But Pavia, man, this guy just has the grit and the toughness. If we're talking about college quarterbacks, he's one of the top. Just on what he does at Vanderbilt, how he could get the plays extended and get his wide receivers open. Bletkoff Award, Makai Lemon. We're going to talk about a guy that was on the Bletkoff Award that, could have won as well, especially where he's at. But others still, Makai Lemon won. John Mackey, outstanding tight end, the tight end one of the class. Eli Stowers got that, so that's great. Yeah, Jacob Rodriguez, nation's top player for the Lombardi Award, Texas Tech linebacker. That's a good one. Someone to watch out in the playoffs. Um, yeah, that's it. Jacob Rodriguez won 4. He won Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Outstanding Linebacker. 2 different Defensive Players of the Year. Interesting.
Who was the
Uh,
senior quarterback of the year, real quick?
Diego Pavia. So he's
Yeah,
the
he's
Vanderbilt
a
quarterback.
Senior
Yeah,
Bowl guy too. Accepted his invite, so that's going to be interesting to see, especially since he's in the Heisman running too.
yeah,
See that much too often. But you mentioned the Indiana defense, and I do agree with you. I think they were kind of under the radar, underappreciated. I mean, they held Ohio State to 10 points, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
high-powered Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sayin, like they held it down, right? So
Mhm.
it's not hard to it's not hard to see why Indiana was good. It wasn't just Mendoza; it was a full team effort type thing.
And the funny thing with Mendoza is, I know people are saying he had a great year. Guess what? At this time last year, we were talking about Curtis Work as someone we need to watch out for, right? He was at Indiana last year, and so we need to be looking an eye on. And Curtis Work, is it really that the eighth in now, right? So I'm not saying that's Mendoza, but I mean, in a class where a lot of players said we're coming back, Mendoza at this point is the default QB1.
Yeah.
Granted, if Dante Morris still chooses to come back or enter the draft, that could be different. But it's just very interesting. It's very interesting on Mendoza. I do think he's prototypical size, good quarterback. Um, but I think a lot of people are saying he's the best. When it comes to this type of season, why we have the Devy Planet, what me and Spencer do is we're not just looking at the one season at hand. I feel when we get to this point when people are declared, we just look at their past season and see, oh, they did great, instead of looking at the career as a whole in college. And we're going to talk about a guy here that has fallen off ranks, that he had a bad season, arguably one of the worst seasons we've seen for a player of his position. But you look at his career as a whole, he's still a good player. And I think that's where I'm going to be happy about taking him, because he's going to slip. Because people are going to look at, oh, he did so horrible this past year at his school. I'm not going to give away the name or anything like that. But they're like,
I think I know who it is, but
yeah, and they're like, he did so bad. He's horrible. It's like, bro, but go back and watch his first 3 years, see what he did. And guess what? People have a down season, right? There's been that. People in the NFL have a down season. Like, where we're like, oh, they were a top 10, 15 wide receiver, running back, tight end, whatever it is, and then they have a bad season, and guess what? They bounce back. So I'm gonna be happy taking him at a discount, and again, we'll talk about him a little bit more later.
well, let's just get right into that basically. So this episode is the Devy Planet Takeover. I asked SC to bring some players that he just really wanted to talk about, whether they were high ranked guys, lower ranked guys, didn't really matter. Just guys he was excited to talk about. I also brought a couple to the table. I'm a little bit behind in where obviously SC is, but I watched a few guys. Some came up interesting, some did not. So let's get right into who you want to talk about first. Where would you like to lead us off at?
Let's start with the quarterback, man. Let's start
with the quarterback. All right, we'll bring him up.
Yeah,
here it is.
So Carson Beck, man, 6'4", 225. You love that size there. Quarterback out of Miami. Guess what? He's fallen off the radars too. He saw that's going to enter the draft. Before the season, there was talk about NFL scouts, NFL GMs think of him as a first-round quarterback. He was at Georgia. He was successful as far as a winning record. He was at Miami. He was successful. Guess who's not in the playoffs and who's not even in a bowl game because they got so hurt that they missed out? Notre Dame. You know why they're not in the playoffs? Because Miami beat them, and Miami didn't win the ACC. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Miami didn't even win the ACC conference, right? They didn't even get into the championship. That was between Duke and Virginia. Carson Beck is a winner. He saw that's consistent, 74.7% passing completion. That's second in the nation behind quarterback Julian Sayin at Ohio State. 3,072 yards passing this year. Fantastic guy. He gets the ball out quick. Not to mention, Mike, in 2 years when we do this show again, we're going to be talking about one of your guys in Malachi Tony, who a lot of his receptions or yards went to him. Malachi Tony had 970 yards of that 3,072 yards. Plus, he had 7 of his 25 passing touchdowns to Malachi Tony. Carson Beck is someone that maybe it's the fatigue, maybe it's because he's been there and he transferred out of Georgia, went to Miami. It doesn't matter. This is a guy that he's going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds. He's going to be drafted later in your rookie drafts. And I'm here to tell you, take a shot on him. On this quarterback class, I am personally not taking a shot on a first-round quarterback. I think you could get better positional players at your rookie in your first round draft of your rookie drafts. But when it comes to the later quarterbacks, I'm gonna take the shot on them. We're talking about these Carson Becks. We're talking about these K. Klubniks, these Garrett Nussmeier's per se. These guys that we were talking about before the season had a bad season, had that off season, but we've seen some traits that said, okay, we can see it, make it happen. Carson Beck is one of them, and I absolutely love this guy. In 3 seasons, he had over 10,000 passing yards. Absolutely great. I mean, this is a guy that's getting thrown in the mud for whatever reason, and he's showing that he could potentially get that starting spot. We have quarterbacks in the NFL right now that I think Carson Beck is better and can start over him. And he's going to be someone that's going to be taken later in the draft, and he's going to be later in your rookie drafts, and you're going to have to just smash that pick and say, you know what, I'll take the quarterback now and get Carson Beck.
Now, I should have mentioned at the beginning, we are Carson Beck being one of them, sticking to the 2026 class with these guys that we're talking about. So you mentioned within the first 3 rounds, right, for Carson Beck. Yep. Do you think he falls in that medium where he kind of like Tyler Shuck went in the second round? And how many quarterbacks do you see going in the first round of this draft?
You know, as far as the charge, I think for Carson Beck, it could definitely depend on how the playoffs turn out, right? If he has a playoff run, which is possible, Miami has a good enough team that they could sustain against some of this top competition. So if he does a good playoff run, we could see him go in the first round. But I do think he's more of a day 2 pick, possibly second round, third round. You know, I think a team's gonna take a shot on him. How many quarterbacks go in the first round? We're gonna say Mendoza's there. But Cheer hasn't really said if he's staying or going, so that could be someone that's possibly.
I love that dude so much. I think he stays though.
Yeah, so there's still some guys that we don't know what they're doing. Brendan Sorsby's another one. We don't know what he's doing necessarily. So there's still some guys where we need to still figure out if they're going. Right now, the only lock I think is Mendoza, and honestly, Mendoza could go back too. So
true.
It'll be interesting because you know a lot of these guys have said, "Hey, we're gonna stand back and go." So I think we could see 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. It's not going to be as deep. There's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that go later, where it's going to be like, okay, there's going to be a QB run later in the draft. In the first round, though, I think there's going to be 3 potentially. We could say, let's just say that we'll say 4 actually, because let's assume these guys come out. So we're going to say Mendoza, Dante Moore, Ty Simpson, John Mateer. I think those 4 guys could go in the first round, but also all of those guys could also come back. So right now, though, I think 4 is the max that we'll see in the first round.
I do think, I mean, off topic again, I do think Mateer goes back because of the injury he had right before the Red River rivalry game where he kind of struggled. He's kind of been up and down since then. He has bounced back a little bit, but I do think he goes back. I do think he does have another year of eligibility since he transferred. So it'll be interesting to see there. But with Beck, let's get back to him. I watched obviously some Miami games this year, and I watched because we all thought he was coming out of the draft last year because he did at one point say he was coming out and then retracted that. I don't know if you remember that whole situation. Kind of surprising too that I didn't know you could do that. You could enter the draft and then they'd be like, "Nah, never mind." But he did that. So what I remember from watching him in both these situations is he has some really questionable throws at times. 10 interceptions this past year, 74% completion percentage kind of surprised me a little bit. I wonder if Malachi Toney, the way he kind of wins, benefits obviously a guy like Carson Beck, gets the ball out quick, gets the ball out hot to a guy like Toney. But when I watched him at Georgia, I just saw a guy that would really kind of panic, right? And make a lot of questionable throws. I don't know. I could see maybe second or third round because he's got the prototypical size. He's got a winning background with Georgia, with Miami now too. It'll be interesting to see. I just don't know if I see a first round talent. I also don't know if I remember. He kind of threw his teammates under the bus at one point earlier in the season. I think a lot of teams might not love that as well. Just a guy who I was surprised by the 74% completion percentage, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I looked this up.
His biggest downfall is you mentioned about some throws that get away from him. He needs to push the ball down the field more. I think his A dot's closer to around like 7.4, 7.5. So he's not really getting it down the field as much. So he's dumping it out to his wide receivers quickly. That's why he does have a higher completion percentage. He can get it down the field. We just don't see it often. I think that's something that could downplay him on why he necessarily may not be a first round. Again, when it comes to some of these players, though, people see the season at hand rather than the full tape. He's not a bad quarterback. I'm not here saying he's the best quarterback, but I'll say this is a quarterback that has a winning mentality, has a winning record to his name. He could definitely be someone that steps in there. Can he be a franchise quarterback? No, he could sustain himself if he needs to be a starter, but I don't necessarily, I think he can also be replaceable. I'll say that, but I do think he's someone that he could go in and again he could take the job from some people, and that's something where I think, let's say Tua is it with Miami next year, they drafted Miami, and that's Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck could win that job.
Yeah, I think he's better than Quinn Ewers. I agree with you on that one.
And so there's some positions, some players, or some teams, excuse me, that he could go in there and win that job and have a decent enough year to be a top 20 at best, possibly top 15 quarterback, just because of his quick dump offs and he lets his wide receivers do the work. And again, if he pushes the ball down the field more, he's going to rise, but that's going to be his area of the game where he needs to do it a little bit more. And maybe because he doesn't trust his arm or his accuracy, but we see it here. He's like, if I just do it quick and easy, I could get it out. And his time to throw is like pretty much elite. It's like 2.5, 2.4 seconds. So he's getting the ball out really quick. But again, it's because he does those quick dump offs.
Now, I have a question for you because I'm going to talk about a guy here soon. Is there any question from when he transferred from the SEC from Georgia to the ACC in Miami? How do you feel about something like that? Do you think the ACC has become a better, division itself, but it is obviously a little lower tier than the SEC. I think that's fair. Do you see any issues there, or is that kind of just like, I think Miami, with Cam Ward this past year, name's escaping me, has a little bit better of a track record of developing quarterbacks than Georgia has, since Matthew Stafford hasn't been there in several thousand years. But do you think there's anything there, or is that just kind of one of those things?
That would have been the perfect time to drop the GIF. It's been 84 years since Matthew Stafford's been at Georgia. With Beck transferring out, no, because this was like his final year, right? And he didn't get what he needed to do at Georgia, and it was that time to turn to leave, right? He could have stayed at Georgia, but again, it's like, okay, I need to get out of here. It hasn't worked here. It's been winning, but they didn't win, to go all the way or anything. And he's in the playoffs again. Had he not in the playoffs, I would have said sure, because against the ACC, they didn't go in the conference championship. The conference championships, it's a little odd how they work out. There's just a lot of things that have to go in the back and figure it out. But like Miami was the best team in the ACC. They had Duke, who I love some of their players. They have Virginia, who has some good players as well. But Miami was the best team in the ACC. The fact that they were in a conference championship, I understand it. But at the same time, they were the best team. And now we're seeing it because they're in the playoffs. So I don't think it affected him as much. He had 2 losses this year. Okay, that's fine. But it is a lesser tier, but he still did his thing. For sure. He didn't really do better or worse than what he was at Georgia. It was just the same stuff. So it was consistent enough. His overall passing completions just below 70%, right? So it's not like he took a major dip in anything. He just became a consistent guy again, that he's reliable. He could go in there and be a quarterback that holds it down and at least makes your team complacent, that you can compete. Can he win it all? I don't know. But he could make your team compete, and he could put you in the playoff running to do it as well. So that's where I think he's gained overlooked, because we look at it, okay, can he win the Super Bowl? I don't know. But can he win your fantasy leagues? Yeah, he could be a quarterback you probably plug in a super flex league. I wouldn't say he's your QB1, but if you're a super flex, you need 2 quarterbacks potentially, right? He could be that quarterback that you plug in and you're like, I'm okay starting him because he's getting me 15 to 20 points a game. as well.
Yeah, I like what you said there. The consistency, the numbers weren't, a huge rise or a huge drop off from going from Georgia to Miami. That's a good thing because if we saw a complete rise, like if he's throwing for 4,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, then it's like, okay, maybe you benefited from playing in the ACC over the SEC, right? So I like that you mentioned that. But let me jump into my first guy, and it's going to be a guy who's kind of fallen off as well, and a lot of it has to do with some injury history, right? It's going to be Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson, 5'11", 190, 55 receptions, 604 yards, 4 TDs. I mentioned he did miss I think it was week 2 and week 3 with injuries. And he has missed time throughout his career with injuries as well. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. But this dude primarily has lined up in the slot in his career, 78% total. 93% in 2025, but he has lined up out wide as well, especially in 2024. He had a 42% out wide percentage, so he does have some versatility in his game from when it comes to lining up packages. But this is a guy who I think is a very savvy route runner. His tempo routes I really enjoy. It's you come off the line a little slow, kind of set the defense up and then accelerate. I think he accelerates quickly. Really solid hands. Can win contested catch balls. Now, I'm not talking – he's not going to be the guy who wins these 50-50 jump balls all the time. He might win a couple here and there. But he's tough. He's scrappy. So these over-the-middle throws where he can, get a little bit of separation where a defensive player is trying to still make a play. I think he can win those type of contested balls. He's got some good acceleration, good burst. The long speed is solid. I don't think it's anything where he's going to break off a 90-yard run and leave like 4 defenders in the dust. I do think he could be caught. But this is I just really came out very impressed with Antonio Williams. I think he was a guy who got some real, high praise coming into this season. And I think Clemson itself has fallen off. I think Kate Klubnik is not very good at all, to be honest with you. And I do think, the injuries to Antonio definitely has something to do with it as well. Willing blocker as well for his size. Again, he's not going to be a guy who's going to just dominate in run protection or in screen passes, but he's going to give you 110% every single time. I really enjoyed that. I really like this dude. The size doesn't really concern me because we see what the NFL is doing with these smaller type wide receivers. I think he's a guy who could play the slot, obviously the Z position. I don't know if he has the strength to be the, every down boundary kind of guy. But I think he could be a second, third round pick. It's just the medicals might be a little different for him. What do you think of Antonio Williams?
Yeah, I mean, with size, even with Carson Beck, we're going to see what the real size is at the combine. So a lot of times it gets skewed a little bit. So if he's a little bit smaller, may start to concern by, 5'11", 190 is great size there. Shout out my guy Spencer. This is one of his guys, my co-host of the Devy Planet. This is one of his guys. He's been riding with him all season. Thinks he could be a first-round rookie pick in our drafts this year. I really think Antonio Williams, and I told you this, before we even got on here, he's going to be what we wanted Marvin Mims to be, right? When Marvin Mims was drafted, we're like, this is going to be a guy that's going to eat in the slot. He has good hands. He's going to be reliable. That's exactly what Antonio Williams is. Yes, he does get banged up, but as you mentioned, that quick burst, that nuance to his route running, understands what he needs to do. He's just a smart player. Like, I don't think he's going to – he's not going to win off his physical traits. He's going to win off his IQ for the game and understanding what he needs to do at certain areas of the time in the field to go out there and make it happen, whether it be and find that soft spot in zone coverage, whether it be taking wide defenders away so other wide receivers can get open. He's going to be a reliable asset to a team because he understands his position in the game. He's not someone that's necessarily going to say, I'm trying to get every single target. He's going to work out and get you a lot of targets, and he's going to be reliable for you. I don't think he's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. But honestly, I mean, think about, too, he could be like a Zay Flowers. He could be someone that's a smaller guy but has some solid route running. And Zay Flowers is, as what he is, being the wide receiver 1 for Baltimore, he's not necessarily, your top 15, top 10 wide receiver, but yet people still treat him like that. And I think Antonio Williams kind of fit that mold and be that guy where he's not top 10, top 15, but because of just consistency that he has, connection and chemistry he has with his quarterback when he gets drafted, the reliability he has in his hands, the way he attacks the game and understands what he needs to do at every level of the field, that's what's going to make him excel at the next level, and that's why teams will fall in love with him.
I think he's going to be a guy who's going to do really well with the cone drills, the quick feet drills, because he does have some solid footwork in his routes. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to have a really good 10-yard split when it comes to the 40-yard dash. I think his original burst is going to be better than the full 40-yard dash. This is going to be a guy who surprises people. I'm praying he ends up being a Senior Bowl guy, but we'll see. Because again, that would be a good place for him with winning one-on-one drills, kind of making a name for himself. I really do like the Zay Flowers comparison, but Zay was just so fucking electric. He's still so he's quicker than a hiccup.
Yeah, Zay. I was just saying the fact that
Oh, I know, but I love talking about Zay Flowers. That's going to get me on a tangent itself.
Well, we say Flowers, with him too. Let me just get it straight for the listeners and viewers here. Antonio Williams doesn't attack the ball like Zay Flowers does, or like Zay Flowers did at Boston College. Zay Flowers was a smaller wide receiver, but he played aggressively. He went up there and he played big. Antonio wasn't necessarily like that, but as far as the rank wise, I guess you could say he falls to that tier of what the Zay Flowers is like, and because of that, because he could be right, but at a solid one where you're going to treat him like a wide receiver one because he's getting it done every week, but it's not going to be a wide receiver one type number. But you're going to say, hey, I can't sell him for less than the wide receiver one value because he's getting the ball, right? He's getting the targets and the looks, so I gotta sell him there. But he's going to be someone that is going to be in that tier rank like a Zay Flowers, but he doesn't play like Zay. Zay, again, a lot more aggressive, a lot more strength when he's attacking the ball. Antonio Williams it's the IQ. He understands how to win matchups and how to help his team succeed. So he's just going to be that player that's on the field consistently because he's going to understand what he needs to do to help his team win. It's not about him in a sense. He's not that diva type of wide receiver, if you will.
Absolutely. I'm very interested to see how this plays out for the pre-draft process for him. Because I think he's going to be a guy who's in my top 8 just from a skill set. I have to really dive in. Obviously, I'm still very early. I think I'm right now 3-4 wide receivers in. He's at the top for me right now, but you're not saying a whole lot at this point. And again, by the way, we talked about Clemson taking a step behind, but Clemson typically produces very good wide receivers. Again, we shouldn't be helmet scouting, right? But if you want, a productive wide receiver who comes from a good school, you got Antonio Williams, right? So that's nothing to, be ashamed of, to say, hey, he played for Clemson, he had some production, we kind of like that, right? But who do you want to talk about next?
I would say Clemson has some, they had some injuries with some of their wide receivers. It affected Klubnik and stuff. So, I mean, you look at the schedule, you don't look at the win-loss. I know that plays a factor in it, but at the same time, don't necessarily look at that, especially when it comes to some of these wide receivers. Quarterbacks, I get it because you need them to win. But with these wide receivers, the win-loss is irrelevant because it doesn't matter. Sometimes that falls on it. So, I mean, look at the tape, watch what he's doing. This is a great player to pick up. So, you'll love getting him there. Let's go. Let's keep it with wide receivers. Let's talk about my next wide receiver here.
All right. It is. Who is it?
Yes, sir. My BYU wide receiver, Chase Robets. If you're a fan of the Devy Planet, I have talked about him already. 6'4", 210, 47 receptions, 745 yards, 15.9 yards per reception. So get him the ball. He's getting the first down. He's moving down the field, 2.4 yards per route run, over 50% contested catches over his career. So he could go up there and get it. 14 yards for his average depth of target there. Downfall is he's not a yak monster. I know that's what people love. He's not getting yards after a catch, but he's getting the ball down the field. He's someone that's going to stretch it. I really like what he does to his game. I think he is a very fluid route runner. The way he attacks the ball, and I said this in our last show of the Devy Planet, reminds me of Devontae Adams. Just the way he goes up there and gets it. Like he's just someone that, again, is very physical, can get it. I think he gets overlooked. He has phenomenal hands. You could go and watch his highlight reel, and this guy's making spectacular catch after spectacular catch. And what I mean by that is he's grabbing it, one-handed and just bringing it down, and with ease. It's not looking like he's juggling. He grasps the ball. He's just whoop. It's down there. Again, he's not. He could get you yards after the catch. Don't get me wrong. He does have some. But he's not going to be your overextension, getting you every play's yards after the catch. But he's going to bring the ball down. He's going to move the chains for your team. He's going to be someone that slept on. This is the wide receiver I've been pounding the table for. This is the wide receiver I'm going to be excited to draft. I'm going to have so many shares of him, probably the most shares of him out of any wide receiver, because he's going to fall into your late second round, potentially late or third round. He could be a day 3 pick, to be honest. But guess what? Get another wide receiver, that people love that went to BYU that was also a day 3 pick. Is he gonna be that guy? No. But if you think about how he can fit the system, how he can be in an offense and be just a fluid route run, he could line up in a slot, but his size says he could be a prototypical outside wide receiver and win. And that's what's going to separate him from other people in his class. He has that work ethic. He's an older wide receiver, but he's also a Latter-day Saint. So he went on a mission after high school. He missed some time, but he had dedicated himself to go spread the word. And then he came back and balled out. This is a guy that consistently did some good things. Now, he's not 1,000 yards or anything like that, sure. But guess what? This year, he had a true freshman quarterback in Bear Beckmeyer, who his brother's name's Tiger. If you didn't know, that's pretty cool. Bear and Tiger. It's some good names. Good job, Mom and Dad.
They must have been watching Jungle Book when they had that.
I joked with my buddy. I said his dad's name is Lion. His dad's name isn't Lion, but that would have been cool.
Shit. Oh my.
Yeah. But just what he's done on the field after going on the mission, coming back and just dominating. This is a guy you're gonna love. Watch his tape, and I'm not saying you can watch his highlight; you'll absolutely fall in love. But watch his tape. Very smart route runner, very fluid in his routes. Understand what he needs to be, and again, the hands are just reliable. He's gonna be a quarterback best friend, and I'm absolutely stoked to draft me some Chase Robets.
So this is a guy I obviously didn't know much about, right? I watched a little bit of the highlights. I definitely see the contested catchability. I definitely see the way he wins. But in reality, you look at this 6'4", 210. You can look at this picture here. This dude's built like a brick shit house, right? He's going to be strong. He's going to be a problem. Would you say he's more of an X receiver than anything?
Yeah, he's gonna be more on your outside. Yeah, so X type of wide receiver again, but he could move in the slot, and with his route, it's very fluid where he really makes the moves. Earlier, I was comparing him to Kevin Walter. I don't know if you remember Kevin Walter back with the Texans.
Man, I do not remember that. No.
So that was really my comment just on way you don't talk about him enough, but he was a consistent wide receiver, gained 800 yards a season, stuff like that, right? That's kind of what Chase Robets could be, but I think he has a little bit extra juice to him than what Kevin Walters does. And again, that comes with how he attacks the ball when it's getting thrown his way. That Devontae Adams came out to it. I was looking at different wide receivers when I was looking at Chase Robets. It's like, okay, who's he really remind me of? Started watching Devontae Adams. I was like, oh, snap. This guy kind of makes those plays, those snags over defenders like Adams does in the NFL. Like he kind of just has to, and it's his length. He has a good wingspan where he's separation.
A big dude, man.
He's not getting yak. Yeah, and he's not getting the yak, yards after the catch. But he's gained the separation because he could stretch his arm out. And guess what? He has 2 feet on a defender now. And he's bringing it in because he has that, So that's going to be the stuff that falls in love with him. He could be someone that the combine really helps him rise. But right now, I do see him as a day 3 pick. But I think this is one of the day 3 picks you need to really target. And especially if he goes to the right position. If he goes to, let's say he goes to New England with Drake May, and they maybe there was mocks earlier with them getting, Chris Bell in the first round, maybe they get Denzel Boston in the first. But if they get someone like Chase Robets later and they get a smaller wide receiver in the first or something, watch out. I mean, this is going to be someone that he could easily be the top wide receiver for a team. Obviously, I'm not saying he could go into Minnesota and take over Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying he could go to Cincinnati and take over Jamar Chase. But I'm saying if he goes to a team that doesn't have your true alpha or anything like that, he could go in there and become that guy because of it and because of his smartness and his discipline for the game. He wants to go out there and win.
Yeah, first of all, the whole Devontae Adams thing that you brought up where winning the contested catch balls has really been pissing me off in fantasy when I have Puka Nacua in a couple places where I need those goal line touchdowns to go to Puka. It's just not fucking happening.
Yeah.
But like I said, I haven't watched much of this guy. I've watched another large wide receiver in Ian Strong, who we're not going to talk about today. But you're telling me he's got the movement skills of route running, something that Ian doesn't have. So I'm interested to see when I turn on the tape how this movement skills happen. Because if he's a big dude who can move extremely well, that's going to draw a lot of teams' attention, right, to draft process. This is going to be a guy you mentioned probably goes a little later. Did you say day 3, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. I mean, Combine could rise much day 2. Right now, I have a day 3 grade on him.
You think he's going to what's the word? Kind of build the athletical profile at the combine. Do you think that could help him a little bit?
It could. I don't think he's not going to be your burner. He's not going to get a 4.38 like that. He might be closer to your 4.5, to be honest. But when it comes to those kind of things, I'm not that concerned about. I just think his measurables are going to match up, and that's what's going to be really impressive. And he's going to have good enough numbers that could push him up. But I think just being at BYU, again, BYU was great this season, so I'm not taking anything away from that.
They've been a good football team for a little bit,
right? And I mean, it's just the Puka time, right? And he's gonna be someone that people are gonna take a shot on. He could sneak into day 2, and I would absolutely love that. But I do think he's gonna be more of a day 3 pick, and that's good. People love that too, because that means he's gonna slide in your rookie drafts, and that's a steal for you when you get him.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely. Like I said, I want to turn on the tape, but if everything you say is true, and I'm just looking at the guy and I've looked at the highlights, there's definitely something there, right?
I think I have him as wide receiver 5 of the class, to be honest.
Wow. Okay, I like that. I like hearing that. Again, it's not a super top heavy class, or it is a top heavy class. It's not a super strong class. The guys at the top, the Malachi Lemons, the Jordan Tysons. He had a little injury, couple stints this year. Whose name isn't escaping me right now? Is usually the third guy, Carnell Tate. Thank you. Yeah, it's top heavy. There's not a whole lot of huge depth right now. Obviously, things are going to change. Things are going to happen. People are going to rise. They're going to fall. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
You did say the top 3. I'll say my 4th will be Denzel Boston, and then I have Chase Robets.
Okay. Denzel Boston's another guy I got to check out. But let me talk about somebody here that I'm kind of interested in. And we talked about players from going from one program and dropping down in competition. But I do like his film, so I'm not completely worried just yet. There's going to be wide receiver from UConn, Skyler Bell, 6 foot, 185, 101 receptions, 1,278 yards, 13 TDs.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal year. He is a Senior Bowl invite. It has not been accepted as of yet, so I'm very interested to see if he goes. But I liked his film a lot. This is a guy who's going to win in the short to intermediate part of the field, who can play deep. I do have a little bit of questions when it comes to ball tracking, complete ball skills. That's going to be something that I want to see throughout this pre-draft process, and when more film becomes available, because right now there's only 3 all 22 films that I can get my hands on. It's just there was a couple times in these where the ball tracking was a little off. He turned around a little too quickly, had to slow down for the ball. If he would have kept maybe going just slightly a little bit more, he probably would have had the ball, would have been a touchdown. So there's some things there. But this is a guy, if you get the ball in his hands, he can make you miss. He could take it deep. He's not going to be a guy who's going to break a lot of tackles with yards after the catch. But he's going to be a dude who's going to, he's going to follow his blocks. He's going to make dudes miss, and he's going to take off. He's got a great acceleration. His route running is very, very solid, very twitchy. His double moves, I really like the start-stop ability that he has, the quick twitch to just absolutely take the top off of defense. I really like that. He's got a slim frame. You see the 6 foot, 185. There's going to be some physicality things, but there was a route that I've seen, and if he continues to do this, I think he'd be really good at it. He leaned into the wide receiver and did a slight push off where it wasn't an extension, where there's no PI there, so thank God. So he wins with more, high IQ type stuff against physical corners. So it'll be interesting to see if he can continue that. The downfall is obviously he plays at UConn, right? You see the 101 yards, 101 receptions, 1,200 yards. And when he didn't do much at Wisconsin, that's a little bit of a red flag, obviously. But I think this is a guy who can go day 3, who can be, and I'm not saying he's like this person, but like a Luther Burden-esque, because I don't think he has a Luther Burden physicality to him, right? But he's got that yards after catch ability, the elusiveness, the quick twitch like a Luther Burden. I'm not comping him to Luther, so don't. But they play a very similar game, the short to intermediate stuff. I'm very interested to see where he goes. I think he could be a riser because I do see the athletic ability as well. What do you think of Skyler Bell?
Yeah, I mean, Luther Bird is a great great there as far as what he does in the twitch. Luther Bird a little bit more aggressive. Again, one of the guys that you could get a little bit more physical. I feel like, but I absolutely love Skyler Bell. We talked about Makai Lemon. I was gonna say Malachi Makai Lemon. I was watching Malachi Black.
As long as you don't say Malachi Corley.
Yeah, no, not Corley. Makai Lemon and Tyson, I think, was the other one, if I'm not mistaken, for the Blankoff Award, and Makai Lemon ended up winning. Skyler Bell was in there as well, and Skyler Bell, phenomenal year this year. Shout out his quarterback to Joey Fagano, who had a great season as well. But Skyler Bell is someone that, again, the way he wins is going to be with his quick twitch, his quick moves. He could make those defenders miss. He could get the yards after the catch for you if you need him. He has that acceleration, as you mentioned. He's going to be someone that is going to be a nightmare for some defenders. There's some defenders that are really good at that, but he's someone that could beat that man coverage. He could go out there and make very quick plays, very quick moves that if the defender has to blink or a mosquito gets in their eye or anything, you messed up, right? Like, he's gone. You missed your chance because he's gonna disappear from you. And that's gonna be something that I think is gonna really fall in love. He's someone that I think he could potentially run that 4-4. I don't think he can 4-3. Be a run a 4-4. That's gonna help him boost up a lot. The UConn, with the Devy Planet, shout out our guy Nino, who's a fantastic college, analysis.
We love Nino around here. We love Nino around here.
The one that always says, don't scout the player, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. And this is a prime example. It was at UConn, sure, but we don't see this every year from a UConn player. So why are we saying, he was at UConn, we can't really get it? Well, it's not happening every year, but now all of a sudden it does, right? So those are things you have to consider as well. Like, sure, the competition is not SEC, but then go back and look at other UConn players, UConn wide receivers, who's putting up these numbers like he has. And this is a guy that, very smart football player, did some phenomenal things at UConn, led the team here, 101 receptions. Not a lot of, receivers had over 100 receptions, so again,
his ADOT was about 8. His ADOT was about an 8. So that shows that he's winning right in that first down marker type area. Right. So we like to see that. That's why the receptions are so high.
And with his over 1,200 yards receiving yards, that shows that he's actually making moves outside just the 8 out of 8, right? He's actually pushing the ball down further once he gets in his hands and makes those plays. So this is a guy where I've seen him mock in day 2. I've seen some teams, I've seen mocks where he goes in the late second. I've seen some where he goes in the third. I think that's a phenomenal pick for him. And I think this is a guy that a lot of your league mates are going to pass on because they're going to say UConn and say, nah, I'm good. But again, he's going to be someone that could be solid for you. I don't think he's going to be into the wide receiver 1 type realm, but he's definitely going to be someone that could get you, a solid double-digit fantasy production if he's on the right system there for you.
Yeah, I could definitely see round 3, round 4. For some reason 4 stands out, but round 3 would definitely not surprise me if he comes and really just crushes this pre-draft process. Really hoping he accepts that Senior Bowl invite because, by the way, we have mentioned it a few times, but I haven't said it. I did get accepted for my 3rd year to go to the Senior Bowl.
Shout out to Dynasty.
Just gotta, for sure. Shout out to the fantasy football universe. But I got to move some things around to hope I can go, and I hope if I go, Skyler Bell goes. We're a tandem now. It's him, it's me, and Skyler Bell.
Go.
So you've got 2 more guys here. I like I said, I'm behind you, and obviously in the scouting stuff. So who do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about a running back or a tight end?
Yeah, let's go to our running back.
Okay, because I got a lot to say about this one.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I know people will be like, "Why are we talking about this guy?" Listen. Penn State running back Nicholas Singleton, 6'10", 210, 6'10". 6, that'd be crazy if he's 6'10".
6'10".
6 foot, 210. Yeah. That'll be why are we not talking more about him? He's 6'10", right? 6 foot 210, Penn State running back. Stats are there for this season, right? 549 yards, 13 touchdowns, 22 receptions, 219 yards, and a touchdown there. Look, he had a bad year this year. I'm not knocking that from him. He should have came out last year. It was a deep class. So he's like, look, I'm a strong running back. I'm going to stay in our year. It didn't play in his favor. I think this is a testament to some of these running backs that have phenomenal seasons. If you're eligible to declare. Because running backs, the drop-off is brutal. Like, it's not like a wide receiver where Mekhi Lemon put up some of these numbers. We still be talking about him as a first-round pick. But Nick Singleton, it's like, okay, the wear and chase got to him. Look, on his career, he still averages 5.5 yards per carry. Okay. He's had 3 seasons with double-digit touchdowns, including this one. Okay. No fumbles this past year in 2025. So his holding the rock is solid. Okay. 62% of his yards have came from after contact. Not 50%, not 60, 62% of his yards have came after contact. So he can make defenders miss. Okay. 3.4 of his yards, of his 5.5 yards, have came from after contact. 3.4 yards of his 5.4 yards per carry have came from after contact. 105 missed tackles forced. 84 big plays of over 10 yards or more. 102 receptions in the 4 years that he's been there. And over 1,000 yards with only 1 drop last season as well. This is, I don't know why we're seeing the season at hand. This is where me and Spencer pride ourselves on why people solicited Devy Planet and Devy in general, because we're not looking at the season at hand. Yes, the season wasn't great. I know that. You know that. But guess what? This season doesn't define him. Get what? Joe Burrow's been hurt, but yet people still say he's a top quarterback, but he's missed some time. He's had bad seasons. So why are we treating the running backs any different from one season? Granted, he's a senior, so I know the age is a little bit different for the running back and the drop-off click is closer, but still – he has shown consistency. He has shown he could go in there and do it. This is a wider or running back, that is going to slide in your rookie drafts, and I'm going to be excited to take him as well. Why people are drafting your Jonah Coleman's, your Emmitt Smiths, your Jadarian Prices, your Katron Allens, be like, all right, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and take Nick Singleton in the 3rd and take a shot on him because he had showed it. And guess what? Maybe he had a down season, and now he's going to go back and run for 1,000 yards. This is a running back that before the season started, some had him as, RB1. Some had him as RB2 behind Jeremiah Love. He's a running back that it still should be in contention and talks for it, and this is a guy that you should take a shot on.
So there is a tweet from someone from a year ago that I want you to take a look at, and I want you to tell me if this person is crazy or not. But I'm going to add it to the stage here. Just be ready.
Yeah.
It's before. Oh, hold on one second. I don't know what I'm doing here. What do you think about Michael Anthony saying that? Are we sure Nicholas Singleton is better than Katron Allen? How do you feel when someone out there says something like that?
I think they're 2 very different players. I think they're 2
100%.
very different running backs. Katron Allen did show some explosive juice this year. Katron Allen is a bigger, more physical type of running back. Is he better than Nicholas Singleton? I think for multiple this year he pushed himself away. He pushed himself, showed, hey, I could get the rock more. But in the years past, they were neck and neck on it.
Sure.
I think they're 2 different type of running backs. I think Katron Allen could be a more physical goal line type of back, one that could win and go forward. He does run very vertical. So that's something where I don't see the shoulders going down a lot when I'm watching Katron Allen. Or Nick Singleton, I do see that. I think Singleton can be a little bit more elusive. Nick Singleton isn't necessarily going to try to run you over. He can. He's not going to try. Katron Allen will try to run you over. And he can, evade you as well with his agility, but most likely he's going to try to run you over because he has a bigger frame. Right. Is Singleton better than Katron Allen? I would have to really give you the breakdown, tier by tier on it. I think they're about even because I think Katron Allen does do things better than Nick Singleton, but I do think Nick Singleton does do things better than Katron Allen. And side by side, obviously off the season, you can say Katron, but I do think Nick Singleton is a running back that might have a better NFL career.
So from what I remember watching these two last year, because I dug into the all 22 last year for both these guys, because again, this was two people that we thought were going to come out last year.
Right.
You mentioned it yourself. I thought Singleton was the more explosive, athletic running back, right? The thing that bothered me the most about Singleton was the inconsistencies with the vision, with patience, with even with the athletic profile. Like he has it. Why he's not putting it together though, and that was what drove me crazy, right? And I do think he's a better pass catcher than Katron Allen. You could tell by even just the stats. The hands are natural for Nicholas Singleton, right? So that's going to be a big plus for our fantasy rosters, for our dynasty rosters. He's a guy who can be a home run hitter. I want it to happen for him, right? I do, because again, Penn State has been producing some good fucking running backs for a long time. Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders had a run. Oh God. There's another one I'm missing right now off the top of my head. Anyway, it's just I think he could be this dude. I think he could be a running back one. Do you think there was maybe a little bit of, I'm going to the NFL next year? Like I shouldn't really, and the way Penn State like kind of exploded this year in a negative way. Do you think there was maybe anything of like, I'm not going to go as hard, or what do you think?
We'll never know this answer because we'll never say it. But yeah, right. I think so. I think especially how Penn State just imploded this year, as you mentioned. You know, they fired their head coach. He's now at Virginia Tech. They just had a down season. Drew Aller got hurt. The offensive line was as great. They didn't really have the wide receivers, which they haven't had, most of the years anyways.
Forever. They haven't had wide receivers.
So, it really became where I do think there was a point where it was like, I'm the RB1, I'm chilling, but you have to still produce, right? So with that and how the season ended up playing at hand, there was a point in time where it's like, okay, maybe I need to get this right and do things better. But there was a point where it's like, why am I going to put this tear on my body when my team's not even going to do anything, right? Like at this point, after a while, it's like, what's the point necessarily? And I'm not saying he gave up, but I think we do see some players say, all right, we're going to shut ourselves down, right? We're not going to play the rest of the season. Maybe my quarterback got hurt, and I'm going to say, all right, I'm not going to go out there and risk my body because I know I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to make sure I'm healthy because, for example, shout out our guy Chris Bell tore his ACL. That's brutal news, right? This is a guy that we were talking about, first round caliber type of wide receiver, tore his ACL the last week of the season. It's like, man, that is horrible news because, again, first round NFL prospect to some people, they tore his ACL last game of the season. Like that hurts, right? So with that, I mean, Nick Singleton, the running backs get wear and tear. And I think many people, there were some, that had Katron Allen above Nick Singleton, but I think many people, including myself.
Fucking Michael Anthony guy. Fuck that guy.
Well, many people had Singleton as the better running back. And again, I think it's hard because they're two different type of running backs. Many people have Singleton as a better type of running back. So at that point, Nick Singleton, in my eyes, kind of said, Katron, go show off that you're a good running back as well. Man, we knew he was, but go ahead and take it over. Be the guy, because I feel if they had the similar seasons again, because they were neck and neck. They had both 1,000-yard seasons, it would be like 1,041 for Nick Singleton and 1,010 for Katron, right? It would be very neck and neck. And I think if they both had those type of seasons, we'd talk about Nick Singleton as a potential first-round prospect at minimum day 2, where Katron Allen would have been a day 3. But now
we even see it. Well, yeah, for sure. We definitely, like you're saying, we see the snaps go down for Singleton, the attempts go down for Singleton. Right. I think you could be spot on with what you're saying.
And I don't think Katron's a first-round pick, but he's definitely a day 2 prospect now, where I don't think he was before, even though he put up the stats. Like, his numbers aren't bad. His numbers have never been bad.
Very good, actually. They're very good.
But he was still seen as a day 3 prospect. Singleton to me, and I'm not saying this as a comp, I'm saying this as far as like an NFL career. I feel like it could be like a Frank Gore-ish. Like, it's just someone that's good because he's going to be there. And it's like, you're going to have him on your teams and you're going to start him. And you may have some bad weeks, but it's going to be someone that I think he's got some longevity in the NFL, where Katron, I think, is a type, again, more vertical runner, could get beat up, where he's not going to have that same longevity in the NFL. So Singleton, he can have that 10+ year type of NFL career because of his smart frame and his ability to evade and just smart IQ of the game. Where K-Tron's really gonna put that wear and tear further on his body, and that could kind of affect it. Where we might see that career kind of differ in them. So that would be the mindset I have for Singleton is I think this guy could be someone on our teams for years to come because he's just gonna get the job done. It might not be pretty. Frank Gore had like one season where he was like the top running back in rushing yards. So it's not going to be pretty. He's not going to say be that. We're not going to be talking about him as a dynasty, top 5 running back, anything like that. But we're going to be talking about him as a dynasty running back because it's going to be like he just won't go away. He's going to be someone that's on there. And as you mentioned, reception are there too. He's going to be someone that's going to be very valuable. I've seen him. I've seen the mocks where he goes to the Ravens. And I know whenever we think of that, we're like, oh, this could be crazy. But if he goes to the Ravens, man, wheels up. Let's get that.
Yeah, it does look a little doesn't look great for Derrick Henry. He's been okay. It's just we're not seeing the king right now. We're seeing more of a prince, right? Which is fine. All right, let's talk about your last guy here. Yeah. Tight end talk. We love that. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. Justin Joly, 6'3", 251, tight end out of NC State, North Carolina State, 47 receptions, 468 yards, 7 touchdowns. Now, look, before I get into some other stats for him, people have Kenyon Sadiq as a tight end 1. I'm an Oregon guy. I absolutely love it. Kenyon Sadiq is a great athlete. He's a physical specimen. He is someone that made the top 100 freaks list. Absolutely love it. People say he's a tight end 1 in the class. Love it. Oregon, whenever people say that, I'm on board. Go ahead and do it. But he's not the tight end 1 in the class. It's Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. Okay, so we'll just say that.
Right?
What?
Did he win the award for best tight end? Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stowers. I actually love Sadiq. I'm not taking anything away from Sadiq. But the size is a factor, right? He's a little bit smaller frame. Again, when it comes to the combine, we're going to get real actual measurables from these guys because sometimes it's a little skewed. We see guys that are 6'5", 6'6", end up being 6'3", right? So it's very possible Justin Joly could be 6'1". I don't know. But with the size comparison, there's talks of Kenyon Sadiq going in the first round. All right. That'll be cool. I've seen mocks with him going to the Chiefs. That'll be cool. I understand. People are going to jump to him. And at that point, it's kind of that fatigue, I guess. I just don't see myself taking Kenyon Sadiq in the first round of our rookie drafts when there's a class of Eli Stowers, when there's Michael Trigg at Baylor, when there's Taylor Koisel, who I almost talked about at Houston. Taylor Koisel, if you like the wrong the Gatson, watch Taylor Koisel.
Justin Joly.
Justin Joly, NC State is my next guy because this is a guy that I think is going to be a day 3 pick. But this is a guy that I think is going to be one of those tight ends that is just, we're going to be talking about them. This past season, he led his team at NC State in receptions to 47, caught 70% of his passes, has over 1,900 yards receiving in his career, 12 yards per route. This is a guy that he is physical. He has the ability to win in his routes, to find open spots in soft coverage. But again, he has the physical traits that he can body defenders and then get plays yards after the catch as well. He's being overlooked. But guess what? 468 yards for a tight end, I think is great. It's not Brock Bowers or anything. But when a lot of times when you look at these tight ends, this is something that is phenomenal. He's been consistent every year. This is someone that's been in my C2C leagues. I'm absolutely stoked with him. I start him on my tight end. I don't have tight ends because I have Justin Joly. I have a tight end for a bye week. But I have Justin Joly. He's starting every week for me because of his consistency to be the guy at NC State. And I think that can transition over to the NFL as well, where he has the smaller frame, that he is very agile, very quick with his routes to get there, the 5 yards, get up in the middle of the field and be the guy. But he also has the ability to be the tight end field stretcher where he can just go up the middle. And the hands are there. I mean, 70% passing completion when targeted, phenomenal. He could be someone that's reliable. He's going to be someone that is going to be overlooked. But guess what? When we're talking about tight ends, people are going to rush to the first round tight ends. So whether that be Sadiq, Stowers, Trigg, people are going to rush to the day 2 tight ends as well, whether that be Sadiq, Stowers, Trigg. But I'm telling you here, Justin Joly is the tight end you want to target. This is a guy that he could sneak into day 2. I think he's a day 3 guy though. But this is a guy that you're going to want to target because he's going to be someone that you'll put on your taxi to begin the season. But then guess what? You're probably gonna move him up because if he starts seeing that field, boy, he's gonna be one that quarterback's best friend.
So this is not someone I know much about or anything really, but I see the 468 yards. I think that's solid. Obviously, the 7 TDs is very nice. We like seeing that, right? My biggest thing of what you said during this whole conversation was not attacking the early tight ends, right? The guys that, the Sadiqs and everything like that. That's kind of what I did this past draft because we had a very good tight end class that just came out, right? I passed on Colson Loveland. I waited slightly for Tyler Warren, right? Because I had Tyler Warren as my tight end one.
Right.
And if I wanted to draft a guy like Colson Loveland, I could have drafted a guy like Elijah Arroyo, who went later, a guy like Oronde Gaskin, who's, Arroyo hasn't really panned out, but Oronde has, right? And you were getting him in the 4th round of your rookie draft. I drafted guys like Harold Fannin, who that fucking dude is legit, right?
So in rookies and
he's up there. He's up there. He's one of also a few rookies that I think it was him, Brock Bowers, and 2 other guys whose names are escaping me right now, who have led their teams in receptions for their rookie season. So that's super positive. But this is, you're mentioning, it's not always attacking the top guys at the tight end position in Dynasty. It's more about, taking the flyers on the guys later on, because you never know with tight end what's going to happen, right? Your best college tight ends are not always the guys that pan out in the NFL, right? Or they, like Kyle Pitts, right? He finally just had a fucking 3 touchdown game on Monday night or Thursday night. We've been waiting for that forever. He had 1 touchdown all season, right? It's not always attacking these high-end first-round picks. It's attacking these guys in the 2nd round, the 3rd round, 4th round. Trey McBride was a 2nd-round pick in rookie drafts just a few years ago. It's taking these dart throw guys who are not always the top tight end guys. Now, for instance, if you could get a Brock Bowers who was a generational tight end pick, right? That's one thing. But those are so few and far between. I thought Tyler Warren was very, very solid. He was still a back end first kind of guy. He was going behind Colson Loveland. I was doing that. But that's just good strategy that you laid out there. Again, I might not know much about Justin Joly, but I do know some dynasty strategy when it comes to rookie draft. And I think you laid it out perfectly there.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I just think let's talk about Sadiq, right? Because it's the Oregon guy here. He's
of course you got to pray.
Well, especially because in the 1st round, we could say Stowers too. I absolutely love Stowers, and I'll smash Stowers, when I can in the rookie drafts there, because I think that's gonna be the guy you want to target. But let's say Sadiq goes in the 1st round. The mocks I've seen have been the Chiefs, right? We've been saying the Chiefs need a tight end, right? Who's going to replace Kelsey, all that kind of stuff. Let's say he goes to the Chiefs. He's going to rise up your draft boards, right? He's going to be someone that off the top, probably 107. I don't think he would go top 6, but probably 107, right? So let's say 107 could be your max or your earliest for Sadiq. At that point, I'm not going to take that shot on Sadiq because I know there's some tight ends later that I can go. Eli Stowers could go late first, early 2nd round. Again, you could talk about Michael Trigg, who's had a great year at Baylor. He's been off the field sometimes, so that could be your concern why he drops. Tanner Koizel, I'm going to throw that name out again because Alec Houston, 6'7" phenom. This is a guy you need to watch out for. He's not going to be anything that's physical or, winning the yards after the Cats. But again, people missed out on around the Gatson. But Gatson was the guy I was talking about in January that we're not talking enough about because he was at Syracuse. But it was a physical specimen at the tight end position. And now we're
seeing the dude from Houston, right?
Yeah, Tanner Koizel. Same guy, 6'7", big tight end is gonna just be that guy at 6'7". He's just gonna be that guy that is gonna be a friendly target to a quarterback and that can win as well. Okay, but with Justin Joly, this is a guy that has the ability to get down the field. He has the ability to win matchups because of his physical traits. He has the ability to really get down and move with his agility as well. He's someone that is going to fit into a nice offensive scheme, and he's going to be someone that I could see win a lot of jobs. When it comes to these tight ends, I was talking to a buddy about a dynasty strategy in one of our leagues, and I was like, our champions in this league have had a top 5 tight end, right? Other than that, you're streaming these tight ends. Justin Joly, I don't necessarily know if he's a top 5 tight end, but he's going to be one of your top guys that you're going to want to stream because he's going to find the opportunity there as well, What if he goes to a New England? I said that because I think they need pass catchers. He goes to New England, phenomenal. I would love that. What if he goes to Miami and they lose Tyreek Hill? This could be someone that could go out there and explode, right? What if he goes to Philly and Goddard's gone? That could be something where it's like, okay, maybe he steps in and fits that role, right? If he goes to Houston, who doesn't have a tight end, phenomenal. There's a lot of teams that can use it, and Justin Jolly's gonna be a guy that take a shot on, and I'm absolutely gonna love it. Now, if he goes to somewhere like to Indianapolis, no, all right, I'm passing on him. Right, that's gonna be a death trap.
Right.
If he goes to Cleveland, all right, I'm passing on him. That's gonna be a death trap. Right, there are teams where I don't want to see a tight end go, so that I'll definitely just pass on him there. But there's a lot of teams where I do want to see a tight end go, and I'll be absolutely ecstatic on it. And because he's gonna be a day 3 pick potentially, even more in love with it because you could probably give him like 4th rounds of rookie drafts because he's a day 3 pick and he's a tight end, and people are like, tight end, I don't want that. Especially in non-tight end premium leagues. But Justin Joly, if you like Kenny and Sadiq, I think Sadiq's a little bit more physical. I think Sadiq's a little bit more wants to get his body and push it up against, be a blocker and stuff like that. Justin Joly can block as well. But if
I was just about to ask you about that. Obviously, we don't get fantasy points for blocking, right? But NFL teams care about that, and that means your player is on the field a little bit more often, right? Do you think he can block? Is he an effective blocker?
He can block, but I will say there are better blockers than him in the draft, in the tight end position at the draft. And even with that, I think there are teams that I mentioned that could have a better blocking tight end than what he would be. But he'd be the tight end they put on the pass catching plays, and he could be the tight end that gets those yard based on that. He'll see it on the blocking, but I think that'll be what he'll really need to show out during practice camp and OTAs and stuff like that, getting that right to just be a little bit better. But again, because of his traits and because of his speed, he's a tight end that could get down the field with the running back and block down the field as well. So that will benefit him there.
Absolutely. So that is something we need to pay attention to just a little bit, right? Because if you can't block, a lot of teams take this no block, no rock for their wide receivers, right? That also plays into the tight end position. So we need to be able to be functional blockers. That was everybody's biggest thing about Howard Fannin, right? With pass protect, but the motherfucker could run block his ass off. So that's still something that's important. So again, if you think Justin Joly can block, that's gonna be beneficial for him going forward in this draft process and his future fantasy value as well. So that's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Now, to end the show, SC, tell us where we could find you, what you got going on, everything like that.
Yeah, man. So my name is SC Romero. I am a host of the Devy Planet with my co-host Spencer, who's at Buckwild Sports. You can follow me on X. My personal is the PPR, so we'll also follow at the Devy Planet on X. The Devy Planet is meant for you to talk about all the future prospects. We're talking about them in college, high school as well. During up to the season until they get drafted, and then we kind of pass it on to our guys here, the Dynasty Dogs, where they talk about them as actual NFL talent now because now they're rookies. But we're talking to them about all the way leading up to that. So we're helping you prepare for the future. If you want to find the value on 2027 picks, we had an episode where we talked about a 2026, 2027 draft class and who you should value there. If you want to find out about the future guys, who the incoming freshmen are, and what your drafts in 2029 should look like, that's what Dynasty is about, right? Thinking of the future as well as your season at hand. That's what we're doing here. And so Devy Planet is a show here on the Fantasy Football Universe. We're here for y'all to talk about that. We did take a break. We had our final episode of the season because college football season is over. We took a break from the videos, but behind the scenes, me and Spencer are working on building out our analytic profiles for scouts, so we have better numbers and better idea on how to rate these guys for y'all, to give y'all the best data we can moving forward, just to give you that. And we had a lot of things in the stores. I don't want to give away any spoilers, right, like that. Just say there's some guides coming, there's some rankings, coming in, where we're talking about breaking down by position as well as by class, tier lists coming. We have a lot of stuff working on that. We chose to end our season so we could get in the papers, get our pen and paper down and write these numbers down to get these analytics for y'all. But a lot of things happening for the Devy Planet, man. My guy Tom Harvey is helping. He's my co-host, was for me on Devy Degens that happened every Monday. We also stopped. We said, all right, we're going to end our season here because he's helping us build out these analytics as well. So we are doing all the legwork, all the film watching, all the number watching. We're doing everything we can to find out how we can give you the best odds as far as these prospects, right? And with the Devy Planet, we are focusing on the top end talent, as you mentioned. These Fernando Mendoza's, the Makai Lemons, the Jeremiah Loves, the Kenan Sadiqs, these first round talents. But we're also trying to find these gems. Hence, some of these guys we talked about here today: Skyler Bell, Singleton, Joly, Carson Beck. We want to find out these guys because not everyone has a first round pick. In some of my leagues, I sold most of my first and second round picks to try to win a ship, and now I'm in the playoffs, right? So what are you doing with these third and fourth round picks? In some leagues, you may be in fifth and sixth round. So what are you doing with these picks? That's what we want to find out in the Devy Planet. We're talking about everybody there. And, we want to make sure, again, we give y'all the best data, best information moving forward. So that's what we're going to try to do for y'all. And that's, me and Spencer, that's what we're here for at the PPR. So at Buckwad Sports, and my guy, Tom Harvey, at Tom Harvey Sports, man. Great analyst, when it comes to great knowledge on the game. And we're here to give y'all anything. So any questions about future prospects, reach out to us.
Absolutely. And definitely reach out in our Discord too. The link will be below and in the audio version of this as well. So join the Discord. Make sure you're asking all these Devy questions to SC, Spencer, and Tom, because that's something, I try my best at, but I'm not always the greatest at. I dabble a little bit, but I'm not, as well versed as these guys. So make sure you're reaching out to them. But we end the end of it. Okay.
I do want to give you your flowers though, because someone as you're not as into it. My guy Mike's been, at the Senior Bowl, as you mentioned, third year in a row you got accepted, So when it comes down to it, that's a big game for a lot of these players to really show off. But he's in there, boots on the ground, getting these interviews from some of these guys, right? So a lot of that plays a factor. Something we don't necessarily talk about when we're scouting these guys is what are they doing behind closed doors in these interviews? Well, Mike gets firsthand look when he goes to these Senior Bowls and talks to these guys. And really, I feel when you're doing that, you kind of see their body chemistry and what they're doing. And that can kind of give you the vibe on, I really like this guy, or he might need to work with some things, right? Yeah. So, so I think that plays a big factor when we're building out these recruiting profiles as well. So even though you say you might not be as into it, I do want to give you your flowers, because having those boots on the ground and doing that, I think means a lot. And that's something where a lot of people miss, right? A lot of people aren't able to go to those type of games like the Senior Bowl, but you're one that has been for 2 consecutive years. And I think that's going to play a factor in it. So, kudos to you.
I appreciate that. That's one thing that, we all should be doing, just giving each other flowers, because, it's something that's important. And I really appreciate it. I just, with comes to the Devy stuff, I always reach out to you because you're the guy that I trust the most when it comes to this shit. Because I'm good when they're about to come into the NFL. Anything before that, I'm a little fucked. But anyway, we end the show every week talking about mental health. It's extremely important. Make sure you're reaching out to someone, whether it be a friend, a family member, your pets, doesn't matter. Somebody out there loves you and cares about you and wants to be, of an ear for you to talk to. So just make sure you're reaching out. That is something Rich and I always say at the end of every episode. Just, we'd rather talk with you than talk about you. Again, mental health matters. Make sure you're reaching out. And this is the end of the Dynasty Dogs, brought to you by the double FU for you. That is the Fantasy Football Universe. We will see you guys next week. Have a good day.
FFU. FFU.